All right, so happy Friday or happy Monday, depending upon whether we're on an A or a B day here. Today's lesson is going to be very short. So hopefully for, like I said, a Friday or a Monday that we're doing it on, it'll be a nice, quick lesson for you. Now that we know how to do our addition and subtraction, our multiplication and division of rational expressions, now let's strictly focus on dividing polynomials. So we talked a little bit about that in the last section, but now we're going to work with different types of dividing polynomials. So we're going to split this up, obviously, like I said, into two different days. The first day, just today, we're going to be focusing on dividing a polynomial by a monomial. All right, so what that means is we're going to be taking something like, sorry about that, 2x squared plus 16x, and we're going to be taking that and we're going to be dividing it by 2x. So we see how this is different from what we were doing yesterday or 2 days ago, because this isn't written as a fraction, right? We're not taking a rational expression and dividing a rational expression. We're now taking a binomial or a polynomial and dividing it by a monomial. So this is just a tiny bit different than what we were doing in the previous section. But it will kind of eventually get to the point where it is the same. So what we're going to do with this one, when we are taking a polynomial, it could be a binomial, it could be a trinomial, it could be anything, it could be 4, 5, 6 terms, and we are dividing it by a monomial. Remember, monomial means one term, so 2x, 3x squared, something like that, where there's no addition or subtraction in it. So when we're dividing a polynomial by a monomial, the first thing we want to do, we want to rewrite it as a fraction. So what I mean, remember, the division sign can always be rewritten as a fraction bar. So we're going to take the 2x squared plus 16, and we're going to put it over 2x. So now we have a fraction. Now with this fraction, because we're dividing it by a single monomial, what we're able to do is we can take this fraction and split it up. And what I mean by split it up is we're going to take each term in the numerator and divide it by the denominator. So each of my terms up here are going to get divided by 2x. So I'm going to rewrite this as the first term, 2x squared, divided by 2x, and then we're going to use whatever sign we have here, plus 16 divided by 2x, the next term divided by the denominator. All right, so now we're left with two different fractions where we should remember how to simplify this. If I have a monomial over a monomial, this is the easy way to simplify, because all I have to do is say, all right, look at the coefficients, 2 and 2. Do they have a common factor? Can I simplify the 2 over 2? And in this case, I can. 2 over 2 simplifies to just 1 over 1, or 1. X squared over x, if you remember, when we divide our bases that are the same, we take the exponents and we subtract them. So 2 minus 1 becomes x to the first, or just x. Then we have a plus sign, so it's plus. And then I do the same thing for the second fraction. I work with the coefficients, 16 over 2. That's going to simplify down to 8. And now I don't have an x on top, but I have an x on bottom. So obviously what's going to happen? The x is just going to stay in the denominator. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't even realize this is a 16x up here. Well, we'll just change it to a 16. Not that it makes any bit of a difference. So again here, 16 divided by 2 is 8. We have no x on top. We have an x on bottom. So the x will stay on bottom. So my answer, my final answer here would be x plus 8 over x. That would be it. That would be my final answer. So if we are taking a polynomial and dividing it by a monomial, we're going to take each term of the polynomial and divide it by the monomial. So let's do another one. Same concept here. But now let's work with a trinomial on top. So let's say we have b squared plus 12b minus 14 divided by 3b. Okay, so again, first things first, I recognize that I have a polynomial here, doesn't matter how many terms, polynomial, divided by a single monomial. So first thing I want to do, rewrite it as a fraction. Take this entire part here, make this the numerator. b squared plus 12b minus 14 divided by or over 3b. Now that I have this rewritten as a fraction, now I can say, all right, since I'm dividing by a single monomial, I'm going to take each monomial and divide it by the monomial on bottom. So this is going to be rewritten as b squared over 3b plus 12b over 3b minus 14 over 3b. Now I'm going to work with each one of these separately. I'm going to take the first one first, b squared over 3b. Remember, this is like a coefficient of 1 here, so 1 over 3, we're just going to have a 3 in the denominator. B squared over b, we subtract the exponents. 2 minus 1 is 1, so I'm left with a b in the numerator. So the first one simplifies down to b over 3, plus 12b over 3b. 12 over 3 simplifies to be 4. And b over b, they cancel each other out. So the middle term is just 4. Minus 14 over 3b. 14 over 3. That doesn't simplify. There is nothing that goes into both 14 and 3, so I would leave it as 14 over 3. I have no b on top here. I have a b on bottom. So that's going to stay. So this last term actually doesn't simplify. So yeah, there may be times where your fraction doesn't simplify, in which case just leave it as is. No big deal. But then there's nothing else I have to do here. This right here would be my final answer. Okay, so as long as you're dividing by a single monomial, one term, you're going to take each term in the binomial or trinomial or whatever polynomial we have here and divide each of them by that monomial. All right, so I have 4 different problems up here on the screen. Again, I'd like you to take about 5 minutes, pause the video, and try and do these on your own. Remember, if you're taking a polynomial and dividing it by a monomial, you're going to first rewrite it as a fraction. Then you're going to take each term in the polynomial and divide it by the monomial, and then simplify whatever you can. So again, take 5 minutes, try these on your own. Okay, so hopefully these are the answers that we got. So for the first one, we rewrite it first as a fraction. Then we do it, split it up, the first term divided by 3q, the second term divided by 3q. So it's 3q squared over 3q minus 6q over 3q. Then we simplify. Here, 3 over 3 is 1. Q squared over q leaves us with just q. 6 over 3 is 2. Q over q cancels, so we're left with just q minus 2. Same thing here. Rewrite it as a fraction. Take each term, divide it by 2t. 4 over 2 is 2. T to the 5th over t squared is t to the 3rd, because 5 minus 2 is 3. 5 over 2 doesn't simplify, so we leave it as 5 over 2. T squared over t squared cancel each other out, so we're left with 5 over 2. 12 over 2 is 6. T squared is in the denominator, so that stays in the denominator, and then that would be my final answer. Same concept here. 4 over 2 is 2. R to the 6th over r. We subtract the exponents, you get 5. 3 over 2 doesn't simplify. R to the 4th over r is an r to the 3rd. 2 over 2 is 1. R squared over r just becomes r. Final answer. And then again, exact same thing here. 6 over 4 reduces to 3 halves. W to the 3rd over w squared is w. And then 3/4 doesn't simplify. W over w squared is a w in the denominator. So yeah, just remember that like if the exponent here on the numerator is bigger than the exponent in the denominator, obviously your variable will be in the numerator. But if the the exponent is bigger in the denominator, then the variable is going to go in the denominator. Okay, so just be careful with where you put the variables there. But that's the lesson for today. We will continue with this concept in the next video, but we'll probably, instead of dividing it by a monomial, we'll look at what happens when I divide it by a binomial. How does it change? We'll get to that, though.